are listening to Reinvented with Jen Eckhart, and I am your host. You guessed it, Jen Eckhart. And I'm excited to welcome somebody on the podcast who might make a couple people's heads explode. Now, hear me out. He's an independent rapper, host of Real Talk with Zuby podcast, and author of Strong Advice, Zuby's Guide to Fitness for Everybody. But he's so much more than that. He's a true individualist in every sense of the word. He marches to the beat of his own drum, quite literally. And he's a free thinker, which is something really rare today. Zuby, welcome to Reinvented.
What's up, Jen? I appreciate the introduction.
Did you like that?
I did. It was great.
Well, everything I said is true. You are an individualist and a free thinker, but I wanted to invite you on the show because you really do fit the theme of reinvention so well. For those who aren't familiar with you and your profile, you have quite an eclectic resume. Aside from being a rapper, an author, a podcast host, and a fitness coach. God, I need like a sip of water after getting off your resume. No, but you're also an Oxford University graduate. You grew up in Saudi Arabia, crazy, and you're now living in the UK, and you have a huge social media following. I think with nearly 700,000 followers across all social platforms. That's insane. Out of all of those roles I mentioned, which do you enjoy the most?
Honestly, being a rapper, making music, writing songs, recording songs, but especially performing live, which I haven't actually been able to do for about 18, 19 months now, which is pretty crazy. But it all started out with the music, and music is still my first love out of all of that.
That's awesome. Are you sure you don't like being a fitness coach better than being a rapper? I'm kidding. That's so funny.
I love it all. I don't do anything that I don't enjoy. That's one of my general life rules, in fact, with a couple exceptions. But yeah, I love it all. But yeah, music it's how it started. It's my best form of expressing myself, and nothing makes you connect with people. There's no feeling like being on stage and doing a live show and just connecting with people directly in that way. There's just nothing that can top that for me.
Absolutely. So, and speaking of which, how does somebody who gets accepted to Oxford University to study computer science end up becoming a rapper? Like how explain to me how that process even works. Like, did people make fun of you? Did you take breaks between tea time? Like, I'm really being serious here. How does that work?
Yeah, well, first of all, I tell people that if you're going to go to university, then go to university to open doors, not to close existing ones. So just because you have a degree, it doesn't mean you can't or you shouldn't do something which you want to do, which you could have done without necessarily having that degree. You can go to Oxford and then decide to become a comedian or a chef or whatever. You can go to Harvard and study law and then end up becoming a singer or a dancer. Why not? There's nothing wrong with that.
I love it. I want to go to Harvard and then just decide to do stand-up comedy or launch a podcast, which I am now. So great. Sky's the limit. But what I think is even more incredible is that you managed to release your first rap album when you were just at the age of 19, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. How did you do that?
Honestly, I just did it. I didn't wait for anybody's permission. I Googled, how do you make an album? So at the time, one of my friends in university named Chris, he had a basic recording studio in his dorm room. So I used to just go in there and I would record my tracks there, download beats off the internet and record songs. And after I'd been rapping for about 9 or 10 months, I had enough decent songs together that I could make an album. So I just Googled to see how I could get some physical CDs made, because everything was physical CDs at that time. And I just did it. I think I started out with a run of just 50 and I sold all of them in about a week. I took that money, reinvested it, made another few hundred, sold them all, reinvested, made 1,000, and ended up selling 3,000 copies hand to hand of my
at 19 years old. When you were 19.
Yeah, 19.
That is just wild to me. And all because you Googled, how to release a rap album.
Well, anyone can Google stuff, but execution is something else, right? Ideas are easy to find, information's easy to find, but a lot of people don't have the nuts to act on it and don't have the courage to go out there and do what they want to do. So I just did it. I said, I'm not going to wait for any record label. I'm not going to go on X Factor or one of these shows or something like that. I'm just going to do this. I know people like my music, so let me just create this and see what happens.
don't wait for permission to do things. I've always believed in that. It's better to ask forgiveness than permission, right? Anybody
Exactly.
successful in life, you just kind of got to go for it. What, Zuby, what advice? So you're over in the UK right now, I believe, and I'm here in Manhattan in New York City. What advice would you give to young aspiring rappers growing up here, say, for instance, like in Brooklyn, New York, about the industry and pursuing a career in music besides just like Googling, how to release a rap album? What advice would you give them about the industry?
Honestly, I don't even consider myself part of the music industry. I quite actively and intentionally ignore it. And that would be part of my advice. Everything is about fans. It's all about fans. It's about audience. Whether you are signed or unsigned, independent, major label, whatever it is, if you have fans and people who like you and will support what you do, then you're golden. If you do not, it doesn't matter how many people in the industry are buzzing about you, how many magazine covers you're on, whatever hype you're getting. If people don't actually like your music and like you and want to support you, then all of that stuff is ultimately irrelevant. It's good for the ego. So my way of doing it and what I recommend is to focus on fans, focus on building a following, focus on building a fan base. I'm totally independent and I always have been. I don't even have a manager and I have way more fans than plenty of signed artists.
Do you ever have people come up to you? Because I've certainly had this happen to me on the streets just here in Manhattan, where people would hand me just their mixtape and they'd say, hey, check out my mixtape. It's free. Just listen to it. Just listen to it. See if you like it. And that's really like that sort of grassroots movement of reaching out to people. Have people come up to you? Have you done that yourself? Like giving out your music?
I've sold, no, I never gave them out, but I have sold over 20,000 albums on the streets of the UK, hand to hand.
Hand to hand. Wow.
Hand to hand. Yep.
There's a lot to be said for that.
People there. So yeah, in fact, again, in terms of advice, I don't recommend people just handing their music out like that. I recommend that they sell it.
Yeah.
In an ethical way, of course. I don't like this thing of giving it to someone. No, or not giving it to someone as if it's free, and then after they've taken it, telling them to pay you. No, like
right. Well, and I think there's a lot to be said for knowing your worth, right, and knowing your value, and not giving away your talents for free. In November of 2011, you took the plunge to go all in on your music career. To me, that took guts. Most people wouldn't want to leave the confines of a comfortable career behind. And you said something really interesting during a 2019 sit down with Ben Shapiro. You said, well, I haven't starved to death yet. I thought that was so admirable and really cool. And what was the driving force that inspired you to sort of reinvent and take that scary leap of faith?
It was too much of a risk not to. People think it was a risk to do it. To me, the bigger risk was not doing so. And looking back at my life in 10, 15, 20, 30 years time and thinking, man, why didn't you go for that? You've got a God-given talent. You have the ability to change the world and inspire millions of people. You're not destined to just sit here in a cubicle doing this thing that you're currently doing. So for me, it was pretty obvious. I think maybe people who don't know me would have been a little bit surprised by it, but anybody who knows me, from my family to my friends, nobody was surprised by that move at all. And it's worth bearing in mind, I was already making music at that time. I'd already done a tour. I'd already put out 3 projects. Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't like I was leaving that and starting from ground zero. I already had something going on.
And you just decided to go all in on your passion. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Now, listen, I'm sure you probably hear this a lot, so I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but your Twitter account is literally one of my favorites. I don't necessarily agree with like everything you say. I probably say like 99.9% of what you say, but that's okay, because guess what? I'm one of those super weird people that's able to befriend somebody and accept their worldviews, even if they're polar opposite of mine, which I think is a very rare thing in today's society. You tweeted something interesting recently. You said, I went from wanting, no, this is good. This is direct quote. Don't get nervous. This is not a gotcha question. You tweeted that you went from wanting everybody to like you to not caring if everybody likes you to actively not wanting certain people to like you. Mm-hmm. You also said real recognizes real and the real ones know.
Yep.
Explain what you mean by that.
Sure thing. So as an individual, as a human being, and I think especially as a musician, a creative person, you have a natural leaning towards just wanting to be liked, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think in the world of music and art, etc., obviously you want to appeal to as many people as possible. If that means, keeping certain things in the shadows or not 100% being yourself or not 100% keeping it real, that's what the majority of people do, which is why so many celebrities, whether they're actors or musicians or whatever, come across very fake because they sort of are being fake. They're not truly being themselves. Right. And then after a while, I quickly realized, okay, not everyone is going to like me. Not everyone's going to like my music, etc. And that's fine. Let me just put stuff out there and those who like it will like it. And then as I got even older and more mature and I started venturing in things outside of music and I started sharing more of my thoughts and my opinions and things like that, I just got to a stage where my message has become more defined as time has gone on. And having a message that is defined means that not everybody is going to get it nor appreciate it. And that's totally fine because I'd rather be loved by, I don't know, X% of people than to be sort of lukewarm with tons of other people. And the more that I appeal to my audience by just truly being myself, not only is it liberating, but those people just love me even more. And if that makes certain people who are opposed to some of the things that I promote, like personal responsibility and accountability and working hard and not relying on everybody else and not constantly making excuses and having a victimhood mentality, whatever, there are a lot of people who are pushing the opposite message. And so do I want those people to like me? No, because if those people liked me, that would mean that my message is off. If the people who are pushing for that stuff suddenly are like, oh, great, like we love what this guy is saying, then that would be a problem.
Absolutely.
I mean,
pleasing everyone's an impossible task. I mean, I learned that very early on. But fun fact about me, I love the show South Park because it offends everybody. And I love their whole, if we don't offend you, we promise we will get to you later. Be patient kind of approach. I just think it's genius because, again, you can't please everybody. And if you're going to have some haters out there, you're going to have some doubters and some naysayers. Would you consider yourself to be an equal opportunity offender?
No, actually, not exactly. Not exactly. There are people who I certainly go at, or ideas that I go at for more than I do others. I think something like South Park is really, really shoots everybody. In my case, I do have my own beliefs and leanings and opinions and biases. I'm cognizant of those. And so, there are certain people who are going to get the fire from Zuby more than I will. But one thing I actually actively do is I specifically, and I have a policy that I do not target individuals, right? Oh. I think that you should be kind to people, but ruthless with bad ideas. So I'm very conscious of separating individual people from bad ideas. So you'll probably often see me, you follow me on Twitter, you'll see me attack ideas that I think are stupid, but you'll rarely see me attack a specific person or at somebody and just go at them.
I think that speaks volumes of your character. I think that, frankly, the world of Twitter and beyond, social media could learn a lot from that, using that approach instead of targeting and going after individuals. Just switching gears here, you went to school in Saudi Arabia up until the 5th grade, which I just find so fascinating. You also went to boarding school at the age of 11 in the UK, and you were sort of back and forth between the two countries. What was that like? Can you give our viewers and listeners your sort of abbreviated backstory?
Yeah, sure. So I was born in England. My parents are both originally from Nigeria. I'm the last of 5 kids. So I was born in Nigeria when I was around the age of 1. So obviously I don't remember this. My dad got an opportunity to go work in Saudi Arabia, and legend has it that he just came home one day and told all my siblings and my mom, hey, we're moving to Saudi Arabia. And that was that. So I lived in Saudi in total for about 19 years. I went to preschool and kindergarten there, and then from 1st grade up until 5th grade. Then when I was 11, I went out to the UK for boarding school. As you said, back and forth between the two countries for many years, did well in school, got into Oxford, went there, studied computer science. And it wasn't actually until after I graduated from university, it was the following year that my family moved to the UK sort of permanently. So in terms of where I grew up and how I grew up, that's a very quick summary of it.
I love it. Something you also said during your Shapiro interview, which I found very fascinating, was you said you really liked living in Saudi Arabia.
Mhm.
I know, like, obviously being here in the US, when most people hear that, they'd be like, wait, what? But no, I thought that was very interesting and something to hone in on because, from what I know, uh, obviously being a woman, like Saudi Arabia is extremely oppressive towards women, everything from their dress code to marriage and divorce and inheritance laws. I think women were only allowed to start driving in Saudi Arabia in 2018.
Mhm.
And there is a male guardianship system in place there. Like women still cannot marry or leave prison or a domestic violence shelter without the consent of their male guardians, which I don't know, like you grew up in Saudi Arabia as a male. However, if I grew up in Saudi Arabia, I might have a different perspective than you. Where do you fall? Where do you land with that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, most of the Western women I know who grew up in Saudi Arabia and those who still currently live there tend to love it. Which may surprise some people. Saudi is a really interesting country because it's one of the few countries which people have very, very strong opinions on, despite the fact that almost nobody has been there and very few people actually even know anybody from there. So, and it's interesting because, there are obviously truths in a lot of what you've said, but I think Saudi, it's a weird place. With any country or any city, people are going to have very, very different experiences.
Of course.
And so just like if someone asked you, oh, what was it like growing up in the USA? It's such a
lot of McDonald's.
Such a huge, yeah, it's such a huge, broad question, right? Because there are people who will see certain things and, their imagination from what they're seeing from media and social media, they're like, oh my gosh. I mean, I'll tell you, like being from the UK, of course, most British people have not been to the USA and most people from the US haven't been to America. Mm-hmm. There are people in the UK who in 2019, even when I was like, hey, I'm going out to the States for a while, people were like, are you sure you want to go there? Like, they've got like a white supremacist racist as a president. Like, people are getting shot up in the streets. The police are killing black people. Are you sure it's safe for you as a black man to go to the USA, et cetera? And I'm like, yo, I've been in the States before. Like it's calm. You know what I mean? Like, right. Or I've had people in the States who are like, man, I'd go to London, but all the knife crime, it's like people are just getting stabbed I'm like, whoa, you're seeing, the image that's being painted in the media and on social media doesn't always represent it well.
As somebody who worked at the national level at a network for nearly a decade, I can tell you from firsthand experience that is the mainstream media for you. And that I always have to, I do find myself in that position a lot, telling people, listen, it's not as bad as the news makes it seem. It's just not.
Yeah. But with Saudi, what's really interesting with one thing I'm really grateful for growing up somewhere like that is it does give you a much broader perspective on the different ways that societies can be. Because the society, the culture, the value system, even some aspects of the law are very different. And if you understand that and you kind of take the time to understand it, then I think it allows you to empathize much better. Similarly, I mean, I had a guy from Saudi Arabia on my
country. It's very religious.
Very much so. Yeah, I had a guy from Saudi on my podcast, a Saudi native, and he was saying that he went to the U.S. and he studied in Arizona, but he'd lived in Saudi up until about 18, and then he went to the USA, and his prejudices about the U.S. were just as strong as a lot of Americans might be about Saudi Arabia, because what he'd seen of the USA and what he'd seen of Americans was again, right? Because it was a very different picture. He thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to go there and people are going to be, very anti-Muslim and, there's going to be a lot of racism and people are going to, might hate me and discriminate against me and think this and think that. And he was, sharing his experiences and he was like, yeah, I was so shocked. I was meeting people and I was meeting Christians and Jewish people and atheists and like they embraced me and I wasn't attacked.
All walks of life.
Yeah, exactly. So I think actually if you went to Saudi, which you can do now, by the way, they do now have tourist visas.
Thanks. They're gonna allow me in. Jen Eckhart.
Hey, even if you live there for 20 years, like once you leave, before you weren't allowed back in anyway.
The problem is if I want to have a glass of wine and alcohol is illegal there. So
yeah, if you want a glass of wine, then it's not the best country for you.
Yeah,
maybe it's not the best then. Maybe you could try like
a seltzer.
Yeah.
Well, you certainly have an interesting perspective and unique worldview. And like I said, you're an individualist and a free thinker, which I think that's why you captivate people, Zuby, and can sometimes irritate people on both the right and the left. No, but I think that's a good thing. You irritate people on both sides. You must be doing something right. What do you think is the number one thing wrong with politics in America today?
Too many liars.
Oof.
It's the biggest problem in the West in general today. Too many liars, too much cowardice, and too many lies. Too many webs of deceit and just pillars and pillars of lies on everything. And we're living in a society where often people are, in fact, incentivized to lie, and people are punished for being truthful and being honest. And I think whenever that happens in a society or in a culture, I think you're in a dangerous position. And yeah, I mean, politicians and certain agents in the media are extremely guilty of that. But I think even just the everyday people, I think a lot of the power of my message and the way I've been able to grow online and build my audience is because I'm just honest.
Yeah.
I tell the truth, whether or not people agree or disagree or want to debate. That's totally fine. I've never said, this is a dictatorship and, everything must go by Zuby's law. But
I don't know. I feel like if you were in charge of politics, we'd have a beautiful country, TBH. But that's just my opinion. But no, I couldn't agree with you more on that. Politicians and lying, it's just they kind of go in lockstep with each other. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor, and I did not have sexual relations with that woman. And Trump's also lie. Everyone lies, and it's a big problem. But listen, in years past, Michael Jordan was quoted in the recent ESPN documentary. I don't know if you watched it, The Last Dance, saying Republicans buy sneakers too, after refusing to endorse an African-American Democrat who was running against an incumbent Republican at the time in 1990. To me, when I watched that scene, it feels like he didn't want to get political with his platform because he didn't want to alienate certain people from his brand. Sure. Do you think it would be a less polarizing society if more celebs and public figures sort of followed suit?
I have mixed feelings on this and I also wouldn't want to be hypocritical because I am a public figure to a degree, and I am, I'm pretty open about my politics, my religious beliefs, my social beliefs, etc. So I think there should be a separation between individuals and brands, shall we say. I'm not a big fan of companies, like big organizations and corporations, et cetera, being very strongly biased in one way or the other politically, unless it is literally a political organization. Then I'm not a fan of that. I don't like the whole woke capitalism thing. I also
can't stand when newspapers endorse presidential candidates. I've never, as a journalist, I've never understood that because, as a journalist, you're supposed to be fair and balanced. You're not supposed to take sides or have an opinion. And I understand there are op-ed journalists, but what are newspapers doing? That's never made sense to me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think individuals, that's one thing. So, I mean, Michael Jordan is an individual, but then there's also the Jordan brand, which is linked with Nike. So I think from 100% from what he said with that, I'm totally on board with that, because why would he want his brand to only appeal to, I don't know, so let's say half the country? I know it's not really half, when he could appeal to 100%, because a shoe is a shoe, right? There's not liberal shoes and conservative shoes and libertarian shoes. They're just shoes. Same with, I don't need my ice cream to tell me what my political opinions should be. Hello, Ben and Jerry's. You're right. It's just it's just
if you're
ice
listening,
cream.
Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah, it's just ice cream. You don't need Gillette razors telling you what to think about transgenderism, all that stuff. It's just, I think that's nonsensical. And I think also they shoot themselves in the foot when they do that.
Interesting. So I just, from my vantage point, I am curious, what is it like over in the UK? Do celebs and famous athletes over there sound off on politics? Do they get involved?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's no different from the USA in that regard.
No different from the USA. No. Interesting. Now, this is the $1 million question that I've been leading up to. I'm very excited about this. I'm not sure if you've already been asked about this. If you have, you're going to get asked again. But as somebody who lives in the UK, I am dying to know your views on the royal family. Are you team Harry and Meghan, or are you team royal family here I need to know this. The people want answers, Zuby.
I don't care. I think Prince Harry married the wrong woman. And I said that before they even got married, and I got absolutely shellacked for it. But I think years later, anyone honest, I think will see what I was getting at there. So yeah, I think he made an error on that one, but that's his.
A lot of my friends are in line with your thinking and feel that he has been manipulated to a degree, and they think he is in an unfair situation in that he could just sound off on the press here in the US whenever he feels like it. Whereas the royal family, there's a lot more restrictions, right? Like they can't exactly, I listen, I agree with you. I don't really have a dog in this fight. I say we release the corgis and just do this like Hunger Games style, because I'm tired of hearing about it. I just don't care. Can we all just get along? I don't get it. I really just don't get it.
Yeah, I'm not into celebrity stuff in general, let alone royal family stuff falls into that for me. Like I just don't care. I'm like, do I know these people? Do they know me? No. Okay, cool. I don't really care.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I was going to ask you, as a rapper, what your thoughts were on somebody like Kanye West coming out in support of President Trump. And obviously you have somebody like LeBron James, another athlete, voicing his opinions on various political topics. I mean, are you against that? Do you think they should kind of just stick to their craft, or... No, I don't think they should. I'm not in the shut up and dribble camp. I think if people... by the way, that is a terrible camp to be in. If you're in that camp.
Yeah, no.
Don't listen to this podcast.
No, what I would say though, and this goes for anybody, is I would just say, this, I don't apply different rules to celebrities. I just think, look, do your best to be informed, right? Like that's what it is. If you are going to voice an opinion, at least have it come from something rather than just, hey, this is what my friends are saying, or this is what I'm supposed to say because I'm in the music industry or whatever. At least if you're going to talk politics or social issues or whatever it is, just be informed and be humble about it.
As rapper Kendrick Lamar said, shut up, be humble.
Yep. Sit down, be humble. Just be humble, right? Because sit down, be humble. Sit down, yeah.
Same thing. Shut up, sit down.
They both work.
Well, speaking of rap, I love rap. I'm just gonna say it. I thought it was so funny. Ben Shapiro was like, I play the violin. I don't like rap. I'm like, okay, dude. See what I did there? But anyway, to all my viewers, listeners out there, Zuby has this awesome song, and it's called "Okay, Dude." And like I said, I love hip hop. I love Kendrick Lamar. I love Kanye West. They're two of my favorites. I love Nicki Minaj. I think Fergie doesn't get a lot of notoriety. Like, she can really spit some rhymes. And they are two of my favorite female hip hop artists. But I want to play for our viewers and listeners a sample of your hit song, "Okay, Dude," if that's okay with you, dude.
Go ahead. Awesome. Okay, dude.
Zuby got deplatformed. He got kicked off of Twitter. This is crazy. Zuby is a musician. He's a rapper from the UK who's been on the podcast. I mean, the dude doesn't even swear. And someone said, I bet I sleep with more women than you do. To which he writes, "Okay, dude." And they decided by him saying, "Okay, dude." Okay. That is grounds for being banned from Twitter.
Oh, you don't like my style?
Okay, dude.
Oh, you don't like my lyrics?
Okay, dude.
Oh, you don't like my politics?
Okay, dude.
Do you even know what knowledge is?
Okay, dude.
Oh, now they want to mention me.
Okay, dude.
So now they want to censor me.
Okay, dude.
I got blood and dragon energy, and I control my legacy, and I got friends and enemies. I'm working hard to make a milli, baby. Flow is never wheezy. Couple 100,000.
Dude,
it all started with
so good.
Thank you.
So good. I have to know though. So tiger blood was an interesting word choice there.
Okay.
Are you giving a nod to actor Charlie Sheen when he famously was like, "I have tiger blood in my veins"?
I was. Yeah, it was Charlie Sheen. It was a Charlie Sheen nod and Donald Trump / Kanye West nod.
Oh, that's hilarious. Do you know, has Charlie Sheen listened to this song?
Ooh, I doubt it.
Well, if he's listening to this podcast, maybe he'll want to come on and have a rebuttal too. Maybe he can add a line or two, but I thought that was awesome. But "Okay, dude" is obviously your catchphrase, is it not?
Inadvertently, I guess. Yeah.
Well, listen, if it is, it's a great one, but I want to know what's the true, obviously it's a great song, has a great beat. You're great at you're a great rapper, Zuby, but I want to
Thank
know
you.
what's the true meaning and the overall messaging of this song, and why do you feel it's so important?
Okay. So, I mean, Joe Rogan on the intro explained what happened. So I got deplatformed from Twitter for
Yep.
several days last year because I literally said those words, okay, dude, to an individual, which is, clearly a violation, hate speech. And okay, dude, to me is just, it just kind of means like, yeah, whatever, right? It's
Insane.
just
I
kinda
literally say it on a daily basis.
yeah. There's nothing.
As a female, no less. Okay, dude.
Yeah,
Okay,
gender
bro.
neutral, So yeah, exactly. It's like, cool story, bro. So with that song, that was the first song that I made since I went viral with the deadlift and stuff went crazy for me, and I did my USA trip, etc. So between my last album, Perseverance, coming out at the beginning of 2019, and then that song coming out last year, so much had happened, and I really wanted to make a song just addressing a lot of the different things that I've actually even talk about on social media, and address some of my critics and haters, and also just share some of my thoughts. What I love about rap and hip hop in general is you can say a lot. Yeah, you can say a lot in just a couple of lines, and there's layers to everything.
There's power in that. And there's sort of a way to tune out, send a message to the doubters and the haters and the naysayers. I think there's a lot of power in that.
Yeah, that's the chorus, actually. That's why it's like, oh, you don't like my style. Oh, you don't like my lyrics. Oh, you don't like my pod. It's just like, okay,
so you want to censor me? Fine. I got tiger blood and dragon energy.
Exactly.
I love it. I think it's great. But, another one of my favorite tweets of yours, sorry, bringing up one last tweet.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Because it's so money. But basically, it's you saying how Twitter works, me, I prefer apples to pears, random person, So basically, what you're saying is that you hate oranges. You also failed to mention pineapples, mangoes, strawberries, and marginalized fruits of citrus. Educate yourself. I thought that was such a it was such a perfect, hilarious analogy for where we are as a society today. Like Zuby, I'm afraid I'm going to get canceled for saying the other day during an on-air appearance that I like Nickelback. I mean, which I don't know. Some people might say, well, Jen, you deserve to get canceled for saying that. I unapologetically will say I love Nickelback, but all jokes aside, I mean, do you think we will ever get back to a place in society where we can freely express ourselves without fear of being canceled?
That's a fantastic question. I think it comes down to the people. Like a lot of things, I think it comes down to people. I think the reason why we are even in this situation is because of what I mentioned earlier, is because of deceit and because of cowardice. Because the majority of people are on board, right? The number of people who are in favor of like mass censorship, like or you said,
real is real
or whatever.
Real recognizes real, and the real ones know. The real ones.
Yeah. But I think what's happened is there's a difference between a silent majority and a silenced majority. And I think that we may have more of the latter right now. And that makes things a lot worse, because when people are afraid to even speak out about anything or voice any opinion for fear of cancellation, so-called cancellation or so-called mobs, whatever, then it gets worse, right? The Overton window shrinks even more. Their grip gets a little bit tighter. Things get more controlled, and you have to push back against it.
Listen, we're all about reinventing oneself on the Reinvented with Jen Eckhart podcast, but you are the author of Strong Advice, Zuby's Guide to Fitness for Everybody. What advice would you give to someone who hasn't worked out in a while and sort of wants to get a fresh start at fitness?
So the first thing I would say is to understand your why. Ask yourself why multiple times and really get to the root at what you want, why you want to do it. Right? Whether you're trying to build muscle or you're trying to lose weight or burn fat, whatever it is, really, really understand why you're doing it, right? Is it because you want to look more attractive to, a potential partner? Is it because you want to feel more confident and you're not confident?
I want to be on Sports Illustrated.
You want to, right?
me. But no, I think that's really interesting because I think you were on the record saying in an interview, look, you have to give yourself a reason to be body positive, not just because you're a human and you breathe air. I thought that was a really interesting take. As a woman, I'm a very positive, body positive person, but I didn't always used to be that way because like anyone, I'm human. I have insecurities and I've suffered unimaginable trauma, but I think it's a beautiful thing to find your why and to learn to love yourself and your body in a world that's constantly telling you not to. Like, you're not thin enough. You need to, don't eat this, eat that, wear this. You can achieve this look, but by only spending X amount of dollars.
Well, I think it's, sorry, go ahead.
What's your reason to be body positive?
The word term body positive is a little bit triggering to me, but
what would you prefer me to say?
I don't know, jacked.
Jacked. I love it. That's fine. I like that. Jacked. What's your reason to be jacked?
There's no downsides. Makes you live longer, stronger, better at surviving life.
Better, faster, stronger, as Kanye.
Makes you harder to kill. Helps you to protect yourself and other people. More resistance against all sorts of diseases and illnesses.
I love that.
And as a man, maybe the motives might be slightly different to a woman. There's going to be a lot of overlap, but it's one of the few things in the world where it's pretty much all upside. And I'm also obsessed with the idea of fulfilling my potential. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, relationships, everything. I want to maximize myself because by maximizing myself or someone else maximizing themselves, they can help other people to do the same. And if you are not healthy and in shape, then that affects you obviously very directly, but it does also have a wider impact and wider implication. So I think everyone should seek to maximize themselves. And hey, you've only got one body. Right. So it's crazy that some people will treat their house or their car or their shoes. Man. Yeah. People treat their material items better than they treat their own body, which is insane because, if you mess up your shoes, you can just go buy another pair. You crash your car, hopefully you're safe, but you can buy another car. If you destroy your body, you're toast.
Your health is your wealth.
Exactly.
Body's your temple. Take care of it. You follow the 80-20 rule, if I'm not mistaken. For those who don't know what that is, can you explain what that process is and what your diet is like?
Yeah. Okay. In terms of diet, what that means is that 80% of my diet is I try to have, nutritious, whole, healthy foods. And then the other 20% I'm more flexible with. So
like during that 20%, do you just go like all in? I mean, is it like pizza, mac and cheese, and like bagel bites to the face, or how? No, I'm very curious. I want to know what the 20% is of Zubys.
Honestly,
what do you eat?
Yeah. It just means that I'm not overly dogmatic. Right. There are a lot of people, especially in the bodybuilding and powerlifting worlds, et cetera, right, where they're so restrictive all the time that, number one, it can actually lead to genuine eating disorders, but also one of the best for a diet to be a good diet, it has to be sustainable.
Yeah.
So if, for example, I just ate plain chicken breast and broccoli and brown rice, then sure, I can do that for a few days. But is that something I can maintain or would want to maintain for weeks or months or years on end? No. So I think it's good to have inbuilt a certain amount. I mean, fortunately with me, I have a high caloric requirement. So that 20% is a decent amount for me. The sort of more energy you burn, the more you can get away with eating stuff that's not great all the time.
Yeah.
But that's my philosophy around that. I practice what I call flexible dieting. Yeah. So I don't do
and building out something realistic that's sustainable that you'll actually, can live with and enjoy, because I don't believe in the starve yourself approach. And like,
no, it's unnecessary.
If you want, and if you want to have something, have it, but just in moderation. And okay, I need to know though, what is your go-to junk food? Like Ice cream. Interesting.
Easy.
Wow. That was you answered that quick.
Yep. It's my favorite food too. So it's easy.
Wow. That's why you have to be jacked and work out as much. Better earn it.
Exactly. I get jacked so I can just eat more ice cream.
I love it. Well, anyway, just to wrap up here, I want to know, what is the most influential piece of advice you've received and who is it from?
What jumps at me immediately, it's not really advice, it's just a statement. But I remember when I was growing up, my parents would always tell me that life's not fair.
Wow.
And I think that always stuck with me. And I think it's an important thing to be cognizant of. I think we live in a time where a lot of people have this mindset where they're consistently complaining about virtually everything and everything that may seem to appear unfair. And I think having that drilled into my head as a child, when I used to complain about things and say, hey, that's not fair, that's not fair, my parents would just say, life's not fair.
The world doesn't owe you anything, right?
There you go. There you go. So I think once you recognize that, and look, doesn't mean that horrible things should happen, but it's recognizing the fact that, yeah, life just is not fair. Everyone is born, we're all born equal, but we're born different in very different circumstances. People are going to face different hardships and have different advantages and disadvantages, so on and so forth. And someone could sit there and complain eternally that all of that is not fair, but it's better to just recognize that. And in fact, to take the advantages you have and the privileges that you have and use them to your benefit and use them to benefit other people. Don't sit there and don't self-flagellate about whatever privileges and advantages you may have, which is sort of where society seems to be right now in the West. Don't do that. Take that, use those advantages, use those gifts you've been given, and maximize things for yourself and other people. That's what I try to practice.
Right. Look, there is real injustice in society. That goes without saying, but I think that's a really inspiring message. Just to not really, when I hear you say, don't live in this perpetual state of victimhood, what I'm really hearing you say is like, sort of like make lemonade out of lemons, right? Like
yes.
Use your God-given talents, use what you have to reinvent and to sort of take yourself to the next, to level up and to use it in a positive and empowering way. I think that's
absolutely
beautiful.
Yeah. Fill up your jug and then pour water out for other people.
And you can't pour from an empty cup.
There you go.
So, well, thank you, Zuby, for so much for coming on the Reinvented with Jen Eckhart podcast. It was such an honor to have you on, to sort of rap with you, listen to your music and talk to you from everything from fitness to Saudi Arabia and beyond. But I really appreciate you taking the time. And all viewers and listeners out there, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. That's available wherever you listen to podcasts. And Zuby, thanks again for coming on. Appreciate it.
Most welcome, Jen. Been great to talk.
I'm Jen Eckhart. Thanks for listening.